Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe right here on J&J Media Network. Wow, that feels good to say. Facebook Live, Twitch TV, Twitter, and now on YouTube. I'm your host, Jonah Malkin, with you every single Monday and Wednesday morning, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 11 Central, and 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific. Thank you so much for joining me on Morning Joe and making J&J Media Network a part of your weekday plan. So much to get into today. Wow, this might be my best show today. I'm gonna be honest with you. You should stick around for this. I'm going to be covering the entire sports landscape today. So much to talk about. The Rams with an impressive win over the Eagles, Cardinals, and DeAndre Hopkins. I'm sure Deshaun Watson is saying to himself, that damn Bill O'Brien, what were you thinking? Kyler Murray saying, thank you so much for handing him to me. The Patriots with a win over the Ravens, an upset. The Dolphins have won now 5 straight games. Daniel Jones gets his revenge versus the Eagles. And then in the NBA, there's a lot to talk about as well. The Lakers are finalizing a deal to acquire Dennis Schroeder from OKC. What does that mean? The Houston Rockets, Russell Westbrook wants out of Houston. I've got a potential 3-way trade featuring him that you're going to want to stick around to hear, because this might be the best trade option that I have. And I already crushed it with my bold predictions last week for trades. So you're definitely going to want to stick around to hear that. Dustin Johnson wins his first Masters. That's extremely exciting. I'm going to break all of that down. So stick around because we got a packed show for you today. So let's start in the NFL. The Rams are now tied with the Arizona Cardinals for first place in the NFC West division at 6-3, downing the Seattle Seahawks 23-16 yesterday. This was an impressive defensive game for the Los Angeles Rams. Now, I'm not going to focus too much on Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, even though, again, Russell Wilson's my favorite player in the NFL. A Wisconsin guy. He has not been playing well recently. Another game of 3 turnovers, 2 interceptions for the guy who was the front runner to win the MVP. I said this before. I think Patrick Mahomes has a slight edge over him, and that's continuing right now. Even though the Chiefs had a bye week this past week, Russell Wilson, over his last 4 games, has 10 turnovers. 8 interceptions over his last 4 games. His first 5 games of the season, he only committed 3 turnovers, 3 interceptions. So he's got to clean that up. They've got to be a lot better. And the bottom line is they were still 50% on third down. 7 for 14 were the Seahawks, but Russell Wilson was sacked 6 times. Now, again, I'm not going to put all the onus entirely on him because that's the offensive line. And I'm going to talk about the incredible defense that the Rams are showing. That's a lot of pressure from the Rams. Leonard Floyd, 3 sacks. Terrell Lewis, 3 sacks. Darius Williams picked off Russell Wilson twice. So this Rams defense is elite. There's no question about it. But to me, this was a statement game for the Rams and their defensive coordinator, Brandon Staley. Because let me tell you, this is a tight and hotly contested NFC West division. The Seahawks are 6-3. Cardinals are 6-3. Rams are 6-3. Even the 49ers, as depleted and ravaged by injuries as their team is, they're still 4-5, or 4-6 rather. This is a really, really close and competitive division, and this was a much-needed win for a Rams team. And here's the interesting thing. So Russell Wilson, this is the first game all year that he hasn't thrown a touchdown pass. He had gone 13 straight games without doing that. The last time Russell Wilson didn't throw a touchdown pass was last year against the LA Rams on December 8th of last season. That was 13 games ago. That was the last time Russell Wilson didn't throw a touchdown pass, was against this very Los Angeles Rams team. So it tells you that Aaron Donald and this defensive line for the Rams have been able to penetrate this porous offensive line for Seattle now 2 years in a row. Think about that. A guy in Russell Wilson, the last 2 times he hasn't completed a touchdown pass in the NFL was against the same team. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. I think it's actually fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. That's the Seattle Seahawks right there. And here's the interesting thing. So the stats were pretty fairly even across the board for both of these teams. So it's not like the Rams absolutely dominated them in the statistical categories. It was pretty even. But this is what this game means. The Rams, to me, are far and away the most balanced team in this NFC West. There's no question. If you take a look at all of these teams, you start with Seattle. Yes, they have got a great offense. There's no question about that. Top 3 total offense, number 1 passing attack in the NFL. But their defense is awful. They are the worst defensive team in the league. By far, they give up the most total yards per game, over 450 yards per game, which is head and shoulders above the next worst team. Okay. They're 30th out of 32 NFL teams in points per game this year. They're awful against the pass. They are the worst defensive team against the pass this season. So they've got their own issues. They're not very balanced. Good on offense, not good on defense. 49ers, just riddled with injuries. You look at this team from top to bottom. Yes, they're 4-6. Yes, this is a good team. But on offense, their starting quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, out. Deebo Samuel, the number 1 wide receiver, out. Their top 3 running backs are out. Their top 3 running backs, Raheem Mostert, gone. On the injured reserve list right now. Matt Breida was traded. Tevin Coleman is out. They're starting a kid in Jerick McKinnon. He's their 4th string running back. He's starting for the 49ers. Then you look on the defensive side, Nick Bosa tore his ACL. Defensive end Solomon Thomas tore his ACL. Richard Sherman is out. Dee Ford is out. How many guys can you afford to keep losing and still be competitive? And yet the 49ers have found a way, but they're not balanced right now. There's no question about it. Then not to mention the Cardinals, they're the closest team in terms of balance that the Rams are going to be facing against, because the Cardinals have a great offense. They're number 1 in total offensive yards per game. They're 2nd in the league in rushing yards per game. So they run the ball extremely well. They're middle of the pack in the pass. They're 13th in the NFL in passing yards per game. But then their defense is middle of the pack. It's not elite. It's not porous by any stretch of the imagination. It's not bad. They still have tons of players. Budda Baker, even without Chandler Jones, this is still a really good defensive team, but they're not elite, which is why they're 6-3, which is a good record for them. But you look at the Rams are top 7 in total offense this year. They're top 7. They're 11th in the passing game. They're top 5 in the rushing game. I mean, that's impressive. And then you look on them on the defensive side of the ball. They're 2nd overall in total yards allowed to the opponent. They're 2nd in points per game giving up to opponents. They're top 5 against the rush. 3rd in sacks. In fact, they've held opponents to the fewest yards per play this year. This year, the Rams are averaging giving up 4.8 yards per play to opponents. Over their last 3 games, they've only given up 4.4 yards per play. So this is the most balanced and complete team in the NFC West division right now. I'm not saying that they're necessarily the best, although one could certainly argue that, and I might argue that. Had Arizona not pulled off that miraculous touchdown Hail Mary to the Bills, I probably would have said that the Rams are the outright best team in the NFC West division. And I'm going to touch on that Cardinals game in just a second, but this might be the most complete Rams team, the most balanced Rams team that we've seen during this 5-year stretch of their success with Sean McVay and Jared Goff. I think this could be the most balanced team that the Rams have ever had. And listen to this too. Jared Goff This was the fourth game this year that Jared Goff did not throw an interception. Rams are 4-0 in those games. So what does that tell you? When he doesn't turn the ball over, he protects the football, this team doesn't lose. They spread the wealth. Josh Reynolds, Tyler Higbee. The Rams had 4 different receivers who caught more than 3 passes against the Seahawks yesterday. So they share the wealth. This is an unselfish team. And right now, they're tied for first in the NFC West right now if it had not been for DeAndre Hopkins. And so, speaking of DeAndre Hopkins now, when I saw that game between the Cardinals and the Bills, I was thinking, wow, this is another example of the Cardinals fighting well, playing well, but this is a Bills team that is starting to round into shape. Playing at Arizona is not an easy place to play. And Josh Allen leads the NFL in total passing yards. He's been playing much better. Stephon Diggs, statistically, this year leads the NFL in the most receiving yards this year. He's been playing like the best wide receiver prior to that Hail Mary catch in the NFL was Stephon Diggs. And when Josh Allen hit him for that 21-yard touchdown pass with 30 seconds left to give the Bills the lead, I was like, wow, you need to be able to execute down the stretch. And the Bills are demonstrating right now that Allen, Diggs, and this team deserves to be in the position that they're in, deserves to be garnering the kind of attention and recognition that they've been garnering so far because they're finding ways to win. And then Kyler Murray, the ball was technically placed at the 43-yard line. Technically. Okay, he threw that Hail Mary from the 50-yard line, from midfield. You realize that he threw that pass, and DeAndre Hopkins went up and made a catch through three Buffalo Bills defenders. 3, not 1, not 2, not 3. I was kind of referencing the joke that was LeBron James when he first landed in Miami and had that big conference and saying not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, referencing the rings. But DeAndre Hopkins, I always thought he was a top 3 receiver. He's making the case that he's potentially the best receiver in the NFL. That was the most spectacular catch I think I've seen in years. And this was a coming of age moment for the Arizona Cardinals. This team is not a fluke. That win was not a fluke. That win was not, it obviously was lucky to have that catch, but luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And this is a team that has been preparing for this moment. Kyler Murray and this entire Cardinals team and coaching staff have been improving every single week. This is a team that took a chance on a head coach 2 years ago in Cliff Kingsbury, who had a losing record in 5 seasons as the head coach of Texas Tech. He was 36-40 in 5 seasons as the head coach of Texas Tech. Then they go against the grain and they decide to be a maverick organization by drafting with their number 1 overall pick a kid in Kyler Murray who is listed at 5'10", although really is probably 5'9". You take a chance on him with the number 1 overall pick. You're not sure how he's going to pan out, but you just have this feeling that he and Cliff Kingsbury are going to work wonders given the kind of success that Cliff Kingsbury had with Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech as the offensive coordinator. Then, not only does that work wonders for you, now your front office shows the aggressiveness to pursue a guy in DeAndre Hopkins to make life for Kyler Murray that much easier. You trade for a top 3 wide receiver in the league for pretty much nothing. And I said this to start the show. Deshaun Watson is probably looking at that catch. He's probably seeing that highlight and saying, my God, Bill, what is wrong with you? Why are you doing this to me, Bill? God damn, Bill, what the hell was that? because he's watching that game in envy, seeing the kind of weapon that Kyler Murray has. And now what we're starting to see, again, the Cardinals were 5-11 last year. They're 6-3 right now, top the NFC West division. 5-11 last year, 6-3 this year. A tremendous, tremendous turnaround. And again, what we're starting to see, there are two things that I also want to touch on. I've heard a lot of comparisons about Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray. Let's be clear. These two players are not the same players at all. They're not even similar to me. Lamar Jackson is an elite athlete and runner with the football. He has transcended football with his legs and has transformed himself into an elite quarterback. But starting out, he was an elite athlete and an elite runner with the football. Kyler Murray was always an elite quarterback who has now transformed himself into an elite runner with the football at the quarterback position. Lamar Jackson's probably the most elusive runner with the football at the quarterback position I've ever seen. No disrespect to Michael Vick. He was fantastic, and playing with him in Madden was the biggest loophole perhaps in the history of Madden. You call 3rd down and 10 play for Michael Vick in the shotgun. You send all guys on go routes. The defense drops back. You wait 3 seconds, and then you just blow past the defensive line with Michael Vick to pick up a 1st down. Even he is not running like Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is the most elusive runner with the football at the quarterback position I've ever seen. But Kyler Murray probably and maybe has the quickest feet that I've ever seen. His ability to accelerate, to get from 0 to 60 is probably the quickest I've ever seen. Lamar Jackson, once he's reached that 60-mile-an-hour point, then he's the most elusive runner with the football that I've ever seen. But to accelerate like that is what makes Kyler Murray so special. So again, Lamar Jackson is an elite athlete who has this innate ability to elude players and now has transformed himself into an elite quarterback. Kyler Murray had always been an elite quarterback that has now transformed himself into an elite runner with the football at the quarterback position. There are certain guys, we've talked about this before with different guys pulling rabbits out of hats. Murray is one of these guys. Tom Brady would give you the feeling in the 4th quarter he's going to deliver because he has. Aaron Rodgers, people were saying he's the most dangerous man with the football every time he entered the game, and he was. Russell Wilson can create masterpieces working from scratch with absolutely nothing. He's been doing that. Patrick Mahomes now is in this category. He possesses this trait of this some kind of divine intervention, higher beings saying, let there be Patrick Mahomes. And he finds ways to execute. He finds ways to deliver. Kyler Murray, I'm not saying he's there yet. He's starting to transition into one of these quarterbacks who's now giving you the constant feeling that he's going to win games. He's going to make plays happen. He's going to deliver. Now, again, more of the credit goes to DeAndre Hopkins for coming down with that catch in triple coverage. But Kyler Murray still had to evade the pressure, still had to get his feet set and chuck it 50 yards down the field. And he was great. He put it where his receiver could go, at least try and make a play. And so, yes, it was a little lucky. It was a little good fortune, but luck is the residue of design. And the Cardinals are here, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you, they are here. Morning, Joe, right here on J&J Media Network, on Facebook Live, Twitch TV, Twitter, and now on YouTube every Monday and Wednesday morning, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 11 Central. and 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific. Thank you so much for joining me and making Morning Joe and J&J Media Network a part of your Monday morning plans. Okay, transitioning now to the Miami Dolphins. You realize the Miami Dolphins have won 5 straight games, right? Tua as a starter is 3-0. The Dolphins have won 5 of their last 6 games. They just beat the Chargers 29-21 Sunday night at home. And right now, this Miami Dolphins defense might be playing like the best defense in the NFL. They're top 4 in turnover differential with +4. They have 15 takeaways, 8 interceptions, 7 fumbles. And Tua, say what you want about him, another 2 touchdown games, but more importantly, 0 interceptions. People don't understand why Brian Flores made this decision to replace Ryan Fitzpatrick and insert this rookie Tua Tagovailoa into the starting lineup. Let me help elucidate that. Let me make this clear why this decision was made. What is Tua known for? Accuracy and not turning the ball over. He is one of the most precise quarterbacks we've seen, especially at the college level. You look at his stats in college. Tua, in 2 seasons as the starting quarterback at Alabama. Again, granted, he had elite wide receivers. There's no question about that. But he still completed 70.2% of his passes in 2 seasons. He threw 76 touchdowns and 9 interceptions in 2 seasons. 76 touchdowns to just 9 interceptions in 2 seasons as the starter in the SEC at Alabama. Ryan Fitzpatrick, as good as he is, and he was playing well, this season had thrown 10 touchdowns and 7 interceptions in 6 games played. Okay, the Dolphins made this move because they realized, wait a second, we have an up-and-coming opportunistic defense, and what we need is to keep that defense on the sideline when they're not supposed to be on the field. Tua is a guy who's not just going to give the ball back to opponents. Ryan Fitzpatrick is a turnover machine for his career. He's thrown 220 touchdowns in 15 years, which is tremendous. He's also thrown 168 interceptions in 15 seasons. That averages out to 11 interceptions per season. And really, when you factor in that Fitzpatrick missed his second season with the St. Louis Rams, he didn't even play. Really, it is 168 interceptions in 14 seasons, which averages out to 12 interceptions a season. So the Dolphins needed to make this change because they didn't want someone to turn the ball over. They needed a guy like Tua who was going to be precise, who was going to be accurate, and someone who was going to hold on to the football, not just give it away to the opponent. That's why he's starting. And that's why he's been so impactful. And the Dolphins, again, 3-0 with him as the starter. They've won 5 of their last 6 games. That's why Brian Flores made this move. It's not just an indictment against Ryan Fitzpatrick or, oh, let's tank or let's audition Tua so that we can fare poorly against the rest of the NFL and hopefully collect a higher draft pick and draft another quarterback. No. They actually thought that this would be their best chance to win. And it's not because he's got a more explosive arm than Fitzpatrick. It's because he's got a really strong arm with this tremendous accuracy and acuteness to find players in tight spaces, and he's not going to turn the ball over. That's why he's starting. And the Dolphins win again. And right now, they're second in the AFC East. They're only 1 game back of the Bills right now. Only 1 game back the Bills, and right now they are in the playoffs. They'd be in the playoffs if they started today. So, speaking of another team who's trying to fight their way into the playoffs, the New England Patriots beat the Ravens on Sunday Night Football 23-17. I'm not going to touch on this too much. This was a cold, rainy, inclement weather conditions type of game. And overall, listen, this was a bad loss for the Ravens. There's no question about it. A disappointing loss. Now they're barely holding on to the final playoff spot as a wild card in the AFC right now. This was a bad loss for them. There's no question about it. They dropped passes. They didn't execute. And again, the balls were slippery. I understand that this was the perfect kind of game for the Patriots to win. But this is why the Patriots are so infuriating to me. Because they're 4-5 right now. They've won 2 straight games versus the Jets and now the Ravens. And they've competed the best. They have fared the best against the best in the NFL. They should be a better team. I understand that when you look at their roster, you're saying, okay, from a personnel standpoint, why should I value this team? Why should I view them as a good team? But the reality is because of games like yesterday. Because of games like yesterday, they beat the Miami Dolphins to open up the season. Now, granted, it was a different Miami team. We'll see how they fare against the Dolphins in Miami in a couple of weeks, which I predict they'll probably lose that game. But then you barely lose to Seattle. I talked about that early. That was actually on the first show that I ever did. I talked about the Patriots losing to Seattle. They could have won that. They lost 35-30. Cam had a 4th down and 2 run, or 3rd down and 2 run, 3rd and goal from the 2-yard line to win the game at Seattle. So they could have won that game. They beat the Raiders that are 6-3 and probably the most impressive and surprise team of the season. I'd say they and the Dolphins are right there neck and neck, but the Raiders have been impressive. They beat the Raiders. Obviously, they just beat the Jets, which isn't impressive, but then they beat the Ravens at home. And they were very competitive with the Chiefs. They lost that game. They should have beaten the Broncos. That's a game that you can't lose. They lose 18-12 to the Denver Broncos. You can't lose that game. And they were good enough to win that game. Yet walloped by the 49ers, that's not a problem. I get that. That happens. But right now they're 3rd in the division. They're only 2 games back in the loss column of the Buffalo Bills. Like, this team is not completely out of it. I referenced the quote from Lloyd in Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance. So you're telling me there's a chance. Yes. I said it last week. The Patriots have a chance to make the postseason. It was going to start with a game against the Ravens. If they were going to win that game, then they'd give themselves a chance. And right now, they are. But you look at their remaining schedule. At the Texans, I think they can win that. I think versus the Cardinals, I actually think it's going to be a win because I think that the weather conditions are going to be similar to the weather conditions against the Ravens. And I'm not sure how the Cardinals will do in terrible weather conditions and inclement weather. I think the Patriots can win that game. At the Chargers, I think they're going to win that game just because I don't think the Chargers can win games. I don't think they can close out games right now. At the Rams, I think is a loss. At the Dolphins, I think is a loss. Versus the Jets to close out the season, I think is a win. And then versus the Bills, to be honest, I think it's a toss-up. They lost 24-21 in Buffalo. They could have easily won that game. So the Patriots aren't out of it, but it's just so infuriating for me that it's games like this where you see, well, why couldn't they muck up games against other teams? They easily could have done that. They just haven't. So, and then finally, I'm happy for Daniel Jones and the Giants that he was actually able to stand upright this time on his 34-yard touchdown run versus the Eagles to open up the scoring, to open up this ball game. Happy for him. This division, I said that I thought an 8-8 team, maybe even a 7-9 team could win this division and make the postseason. I might have to edit that pick and reassess, because to me, this might be one of those divisions where a 6-10 team wins, or maybe even a 5-11 team. That's how porous and atrocious this NFC East division is. I mean, the Giants at 3-7 are second in the division behind the Eagles at 3-5. The Eagles are 3-5. Giants are 3-7. Washington is 2-7. Dallas is 2-7. And one of these teams will get a home playoff game. They will have earned the right to host a playoff game. It was conferred to them. And, the Giants have actually been playing really well. I think that Joe Judge has done a good job with this team, and they've been competitive. And in fairness to them, I don't think that their record is totally indicative of the quality of this team. But still, the Eagles, I'm not going to go into my Carson Wentz rant. I've done that before. What is it about the Eagles, man? Why can't they just figure it out? I understand that they're also depleted. I understand they've got injuries, but this is just an abomination. This is the only reason why we haven't trashed the Eagles as much as we should is because they won the Super Bowl a couple years ago. A Super Bowl buys you some time for criticism. It buys you some time to bypass some criticism for Doug, especially for Doug Peterson. So credit to the Giants for winning that game. Again, Morning Joe, right here on J&J Media Network. Wow, that feels so good to say. J&J Media Network. Facebook Live, Twitch TV, Twitter, and now on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me and joining Morning Joe and J&J Media Network on a lovely Monday morning. Okay, I'm excited about this. NBA free agency, the buzz is piling up. I made my 3 bold trade predictions and offseason acquisitions last week. I got another one coming up for Russell Westbrook in about 10 minutes. Make sure to stick around for that. This is going to blow your mind, my prediction for where Russell Westbrook will end up. I think this is a trade that these teams should consider. So make sure to stay tuned from that. I'm giving you a warning right now. This is going to blow your mind in 10 minutes. But the Lakers are apparently finalizing a trade in principle to acquire Dennis Schroeder from the Oklahoma City Thunder. And in return, they're going to trade Danny Green and give OKC their 28th pick in this first round. I absolutely love this trade for the Lakers. Love this trade. You're getting a guy in Dennis Schroeder who was the runner-up 6th man of the year last year. To Montrezl Harrell, averaged 19 points a game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, but shot a career-high 38.5% from the three-point line. The Lakers were the 21st team out of 30 in the NBA in three-point percentage at 32%. And here's what we do know. This is the shortest and the most abbreviated and truncated offseason in a major North American sports history. 71 days between the conclusion of the NBA Finals and the start of the 2020-2021 season. This is the shortest offseason ever. 71 days, that's it. So the reason why I love this move for the Lakers is because the reality is you don't want LeBron having to expend himself on offense earlier on in the season. You don't want to do that. Anthony Davis can still carry the scoring load, but you don't want to ask LeBron to have to give you 25 to 30 points a night in the regular season. Now a guy in Dennis Schroeder can come in and he can give you 20 points either as a starter or right off the bench. And likely he would kind of play another 6th man of the year role. This is a guy that can provide that scoring punch, that bona fide third scoring punch that the Lakers need. We saw Kyle Kuzma couldn't do it. They had a cast of characters step in and try and fill that void. And that did ultimately result in success for them. There's no question, but he can burden some of that load, some of that responsibility over the course of a 72-game regular season. This is why I like this, and I don't mind. I understand that Rajon Rondo just opted out of his contract. It was expected that he was doing it, and it was expected that he'll likely leave. And now he'll probably command more money in free agency and he'll sign somewhere else. And I liked Rajon Rondo, but here was the problem. Yes, he played well, and he played exceptionally well in the postseason. The problem is you have to get to the postseason. And Rondo in the regular season is not the same guy as playoff Rondo. And the problem is, as LeBron continues to get up in age, you can't wait for the postseason. You need guys to carry you through the regular season, and this is something that Dennis Schroeder can do. Not to mention, he's not a defensive liability. I'm not going to say he's an elite defensive player, but he was 103rd out of 530 NBA players in defensive win shares last year. So this is not a liability for you. He's not going to impede your ability or hinder your ability to play good defense. He's not going to do it. And again, he's averaged over 18 points a game for a season, 3 times over the course of his career. He averaged 19.8 points per game last year. So this is a guy that can score. And again, OKC is just accumulating a bunch of draft picks. They're just trying to rebuild. Hopefully, they've got so many future draft picks from the Clippers since they mortgaged their future for Paul George. I'm not going to shred that move with 2020 hindsight, with revisionist history. That is what it is. But listen, there are other players that the Lakers might lose right now. KCP just declined his player option. There are a lot of suitors that are interested in him. He was going to make $8 million this year. He can make more. And credit to him. I hope that the Lakers can re-sign him, but I understand if he wanted to leave. Obviously, there are question marks around Dwight Howard, Markieff Morris. Avery Bradley has an option to either opt in or opt out. Personally, I think that the guys that the Lakers should prioritize amongst those, Avery Bradley, I think he should be the number one priority, to be honest. And then I think KCP and Markieff Morris are the guys that they ought to value more. I like Dwight. He had a fantastic season, resuscitated his career. He came rejuvenated. He came unselfish. He contributed to the whole. And I'd be happy for him if he earned more money elsewhere. Lakers, that shouldn't be the number one priority right now. And then I understand Anthony Davis declined his player option. This was just a business move so that he can sign more money in the future and be eligible for that 10-year maximum amount of money he can command as a 10-year veteran in the NBA. He's setting himself up for that. The Lakers were interested in acquiring DeMar DeRozan, but that trade would have involved Kyle Kuzma and Danny Green. I don't see that happening. To be honest, I didn't love that trade to begin with. To be honest, DeMar DeRozan doesn't attempt any threes, and with LeBron and Anthony Davis, you need guys who can stretch the floor, and DeMar wasn't going to be that guy. Here is a guy that the Lakers should target. This is who they should target. Wesley Matthews. Just opted out. He's a free agent now. Declined his $2.7 million option with the Bucks. He is a completely free agent right now, and the Lakers should try to acquire Wesley Matthews. If Danny Green is part of that Dennis Schroeder trade, which I believe he is, you need an ideal 3-and-D guy who you can sign for the cheap. Wesley Matthews shot 36% from the three-point line last year. He shoots a career 38.5% from the three-point line. 46 in defensive win shares last year. This is a guy who can D up 6'4", 220. He's stocky. He's built. He's not afraid of the moment, and he spreads the floor. You have to respect his ability to shoot. He can get off shots extremely quickly, and he's someone who would fit perfectly with LeBron and in this system. And I absolutely think that he could be a really valuable complement to LeBron and Anthony Davis. I think there's certain things that Danny Green does a little bit better. Danny Green's a little taller. He's a little longer. But I think that if you're looking for a guy who can replicate him and you're saying, okay, do you want Danny Green in the 28th pick or Wesley Matthews and Dennis Schroeder? I'm taking Wesley Matthews and Dennis Schroeder. So I think Wesley Matthews is the guy that the Lakers should target right now. Okay. This is what I'm excited about. So the Houston Rockets and Russell Westbrook don't seem to be having the most amicable relationship right now. He apparently wants out of Houston. So it got me thinking now again, last Wednesday, it wasn't yet reported that he wanted out of Houston. So when I made 3 bold trade predictions, I hadn't factored in yet that Russell Westbrook may want out of Houston. The 3 trades that I proposed last week, and I still stand by it as 3 of my boldest predictions. Mike Conley from Utah is traded to the LA Clippers for a package surrounding Patrick Beverley, Lou Williams, and Ivica Zubac. Chris Paul traded to the Miami Heat was my second trade that I would propose. And then the third was Spencer Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert, a package around them, going to Dallas for Tim Hardaway Jr., Dorian Finney-Smith. Okay, that was the second trade, or that was the third trade. Here's what I think that the Rockets should entertain for Russell Westbrook. And again, they don't want to pay him. He's got 3 years, $131.5 million left on his contract, including a $46.7 million player option in 2022, 2023. I love Russell Westbrook to death. He's a UCLA player. He's one of my favorite players in the NBA right now. He does not deserve that kind of money. I'm sorry. Or I shouldn't say it's not that he doesn't deserve that kind of money. He's not worth that kind of money right now. He deserves all the money that he can get. He's not worth that kind of money right now. Here is a 3-team trade that I am proposing. Houston Rockets, New Orleans Pelicans, and the Detroit Pistons. The Houston Rockets trade Russell Westbrook and Ben McLemore to New Orleans. So New Orleans receives Russell Westbrook and Ben McLemore. The Rockets receive Drew Holiday, J.J. Redick, and Nicolo Melli. Stay with me, because we're not done yet. Okay? Then, the Pistons are going to receive Lonzo Ball, and they're going to trade to the Pelicans additional pieces that includes shooting guard Luke Kennard and Derrick Rose. I know. Why aren't you a GM, Jonah? This trade is going to blow your mind. A 3-team trade. Rockets, Pelicans, Detroit Pistons. So, overall, Rockets, they are going to trade Russell Westbrook. Here's the thing. They don't want his contract. They do not want to pay him that much more money. Ben McLemore is a nice piece, but he's not a real building block. And you're not going to have many suitors for Russell Westbrook. The reason why you do this for the Pelicans, let me start with the Pelicans. The reason you do this, you can pair Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram with a guy in Russell Westbrook. You are immediately in contention for not only the playoffs, I think you can make a serious run. He's a fantastic piece. Ben McLemore can spread the floor, so if you're worried about shooting, he can stretch the floor. He shot close to 40% from the three-point line last year. And Drew Holiday, they love Drew Holiday, but he's not a part of their future plans. J.J. Redick is on the last deal of his contract. And Melli is a nice piece, but he's not necessarily going to be a game changer for you. So the Pelicans receive another star in Russell Westbrook, who I think would elevate Zion Williamson tremendously. Their ability to run the break, to push the ball and fast break, the lobs that are going to ensue with Westbrook and Zion Williamson would be spectacular. And that way you actually maximize Zion's chances, because what have we seen? Obviously, it's still unknown whether Giannis is going to stay in Milwaukee. If Giannis leaves Milwaukee, what it says is that the NBA, that huge lump sum of money as an incentive, the max contract, isn't working, because tremendously talented players, the elite NBA players, they want to win. They don't just want to make a ton of money, which they know that they can if they go somewhere else. So the Pelicans, they could do this, because now you get a guy in Russell Westbrook who is an upgrade from Drew Holiday. He's a star. You pair him with Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram. I think that's a fantastic trio. And Ben McLemore can shoot the three ball really well. And then for the Pistons, you need a budding star, an emerging star, someone who's going to bring fans into the stadium, or into the seats rather, and you can pair him with Blake Griffin. Now you have a little bit more star power. You can bring back revitalized Lob City in Detroit. Luke Kennard is a good player. I don't know if he's a part of Detroit's long-term plans, but you insert Luke Kennard now with more shooters around Zion Williamson and Russell Westbrook. He's a great player, and Derrick Rose is a backup point guard. Detroit doesn't really need him, but you can build around Lonzo and Blake Griffin and kind of build through that. And then if you're the Rockets, again, you already have a disgruntled star in Russell Westbrook, and you're not going to be able to receive much for him. His trade value is only going to depreciate the longer you hold on to him. Now, again, I think they might just try and run it back with James Harden, but especially hearing reports that Harden might want out, I think this would be an excellent trade if you're the Rockets, because the bottom line is, I think Drew Holiday can complement Harden extremely well. He's a better defender than Westbrook. He's a little healthier. He's an unselfish player. He's not going to jack up shots. He'll complement Harden. And then you have a guy in JJ Redick who's the perfect player for Harden. Spaces the floor, is a marksman, shoots the three ball at an extremely high clip. This is exactly the type of player. And same thing with Nicolo Melli. Nicolo Melli, even though he only shot it 33.5% from the three-point line, is a fantastic three-point shooter and spaces the floor and provides more room for a guy like Harden to operate. So I think this would be my mind-blowing three-way trade: Rockets, Pelicans, Detroit Pistons. That's how you get out of that contract if you're the Houston Rockets. And there have been some reports with the Houston Rockets that James Harden has expressed some interest in the Nets. First of all, I'm not sure how they would make the salaries match up. I don't know how they would even make that kind of trade work. Before I even share my brief opinion on whether or not I think this would be a good fit, what I find funny is the fact that you see how much the NBA has evolved. Think about this. It wasn't too long ago, it was just 2011, that the Lakers made a trade to acquire Chris Paul. Just 2 stars, just 1 star to pair with Kobe and Chris Paul. And then you had Andrew Bynum and the rest of the supporting cast, the ensemble. So the Hornets, at the time there were the New Orleans Hornets, were going to receive Pau Gasol. And I forget what the third team, there was a third team involved in that trade as well, was going to acquire a bunch of draft picks. But David Stern nixed that deal. He vetoed that deal. Now it was only one superstar joining up with another superstar, because at the time, the Hornets were owned by the NBA. So imagine the commissioner said no to just Chris Paul and Kobe. But now in the NBA, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, all on the same team. LeBron and AD, it's okay to play together. Kyrie and KD, it's okay to play together. And now Kyrie, KD, and James Harden could be on the same team. The fact that that's allowed now, given where we were just 10 years ago, where a similar type of trade that only featured 2 guys, let alone 3, only 2 guys, was vetoed. Now, from a fit standpoint, I don't think it would necessarily be the best fit. But again, when you have such transcendent players, I think that they can make it work. I don't think it's the same comparison when Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade and LeBron James all joined forces. I think that Dwayne Wade and LeBron James are on that at that level. I love Chris Bosh. I don't think that Chris Bosh was at the level that either of these three guys are. Problem is there's one ball. And I think the biggest issue is not with Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is complimentary. He wants the ball, doesn't absolutely have to have the ball. We saw how successful he was still in Golden State. I think Kyrie and Harden is where you might have some issues. I think Harden would have to be more of the point guard, Kyrie more of the shooting guard. But again, they're so talented, I'm sure they can make it work. But I hope that this doesn't happen. But it's just interesting to me how the tables have turned, where, again, you go with the Lakers, David Stern vetoes a trade to just send one superstar in Chris Paul to pair with Kobe, and Adam Silver, much more progressive owner or commissioner, says that's okay. All right, final topic of the day, and then my Malkins moments. I have so many tremendous Malkins moments this week, but got to start with Dustin Johnson. Congratulations to him. He won his first ever Masters green jacket. The world #1 in golf, set a record at Augusta National, shot 20 under par for the tournament. That's a record best at the Masters. The lowest score to par in major history. He won by 5 shots. That's his second career major title. Also won the U.S. Open back in 2016 at the Oakmont Country Club. And then obviously 2020 won the Masters. What's nice about this is that his caddy is actually his younger brother. His younger brother, Austin, was his caddy when he won. And so to see them have that special embrace was really special. Obviously, he's married to Wayne Gretzky's daughter, Paulina Gretzky. To see her excitement with him, you understand how much he's undergone and gone through. That was a really special moment. And then to see him choke up, to see him tear up, this is why we love sports, because we see what's revealed to us is the humanistic standpoint, that these athletes are humans at the end of the day. They show emotion. They display emotion. And to see a guy like Dustin Johnson, to see all of his emotion and the hard work pouring out was really special. I mean, he said the Masters is the biggest tournament for him. The Masters, to me, is the biggest tournament. It's the one I wanted to win the most. And then on top of that, you add to it how special it is that Tiger Woods was the one to put the green jacket on him, to help him put on his first green jacket, because the custom is that the winner from the previous year stays in the butler's cabin and puts on the green jacket to the winner. And so for Dustin Johnson to also have Tiger Woods, who most people consider the GOAT of golf, to be the one to put on his first green jacket, to help him put on his first green jacket, is just a really special story. Happy for him. He seems like a great individual. I don't know him personally, but he seems like a great individual. I'm happy for him that he collected his second major title, first at the Masters. Okay. My Malkins moments. I have 4 really great Malkins moments this week. Normally I don't have so many, but this week's just been a fantastic week. First and foremost, I have to start off with this. The Miami Marlins in baseball, in the MLB, they hired their first female general manager, Kim Ang, who's set to become the first general manager in MLB history. Major, major congrats to her. Another breakthrough for women in the sports industry. I think that it's been too long to have not seen a woman at the general with that kind of power in a higher position like that in the front office. A major breakthrough for the sport, and hopefully we see that continue to permeate across all the other major sports as well, because I don't expect this to be the only one. And it's a shame that it's taken this long, but happy for Kim Ng. And credit to Derek Jeter and the Marlins for making this decision. The other thing is, so Marshall University in college football moved to 7-0, but this was really special because they moved to 7-0 on the 50th anniversary of really just a tragic plane crash that killed 75 members of their football team. And they were honoring them, and to improve to 7-0 on the 50th anniversary to recognize those players that perished in that tragic plane crash is really special. And along the same lines with Kentucky and Vanderbilt, Kentucky, their offensive line, they took a delay of game penalty to honor their late offensive line coach, John Schlarman, who passed away on Thursday. So they took a delay of game penalty to honor him. Credit to Vanderbilt for declining that penalty and also paying their respects to John Schlarman. And that was just a really, really commendable gesture from Kentucky. And then finally, this is Malkin's Moments after all. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that 43-yard touchdown pass from Kyler Murray to DeAndre Hopkins. How can that not be one of Malkin's moments? That was one of the best moments that I've seen in the last several years. That was absolutely fantastic. Threw it into triple coverage. DeAndre Hopkins comes down with it, makes the game-winning touchdown catch, and the Cardinals beat the Buffalo Bills, improved to 6-3. That was fantastic. That's my Malkin's Moments. That's all I got for you today. Thank you so much for joining me. You've been watching Morning Joe with yours truly, Jonah Malkin, right here on J&J Media Network, on Facebook Live, on Twitch TV, on Twitter, and on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me. And as always, have a lovely rest of your morning.